In a world asking the question, what if the movies that got delayed came out on time and they were different? That's the case in my universe. I'm Steven Shinder and you're listening to Delayed Replay, Season 5, airing every other Saturday, unless I change my mind. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap or review movies that got delayed or didn't get to happen in that other universe because of weird studio decisions, but they come out in our universe sometimes. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and joining me once again, it is Mr. Multiverse. What's up, my man?
What is going on? How is everyone doing out there? We are going to be talking about a movie that happened. I had something, I lost it.
Yeah, much like how WB felt like they had something and lost it, probably, you know?
I feel like that's kind of the running thing with Warner Brothers as of late, is where they have something and then they lose it. Whether that be a universe or, I don't know, a competent head at the helm, or
deleting something like in that other universe. It's a mess.
Erasing movies that are already finished just for a tax write-off, and I don't know. They say that's a running trend. Having things, Warner Brothers having things and then not.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this recently, and Fantastic Four, the new one, got just announced barely in that other universe, the cast. But I was thinking about how the 90s one was sort of the OG, we made it, but we're not releasing it type thing,
You mean the Roger Corman one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's awful, but I kind of like it. It's just kind of like watching a train wreck.
Right. So yeah, this movie, Shazam versus Black Adam, came out in December for us, but there were some other things coming out, so I shifted the schedule around. But yeah, well, first off, I think it was smart that they titled it Shazam versus Black Adam instead of the other way around, because if it was the other way around, it would have been BAVS, which is too close to BVS, Batman versus Superman, Yeah,
I feel like they were intentionally trying to avoid that. Yeah.
So there's a lot that happens in this movie. Shazam and Black Adam finally collide. You also got some Legion of Doom threads and Monster Society threads carrying over. So it kind of felt like, as they were making this, they got the heads up that the DCEU was ending and wanted to throw in whatever they can. So I'll let you start off. What initial thoughts on this movie?
Well, it's kind of funny because this movie really does feel like it's meant to be like Shazam 3 and Black Adam 2 at the same time, and it feels like none of those things. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And because of weird multiverse stuff going on in a couple of the other recent DC movies, it's like they're also trying to insinuate in the background that there's some stuff going on, and whether it aligns or not, I feel like at this point they just didn't really care as much, so we're just going with the flow and mainly focusing on Black Adam and Shazam, if anything.
Yeah. So I guess we could start at the beginning of this film, and I think originally it does feel like they were trying to take some inspiration from the Superman Shazam short story called First Thunder, which involves Black Adam and Superman and Shazam battling him. It actually got adapted into a short DC animated film.
Yeah, that was an excellent short. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But I feel like if they just went with that, I would have liked this movie a lot more.
Yeah, maybe an expanded version of it, perhaps, instead of sort of cluttering some other stuff in there.
Yeah. This movie, it starts out really fun. It starts out it's kind of like, eating stride. It's like chewing stride gum. Exciting at first and disappointing a few minutes later.
Oh my gosh, I totally know what you mean. Like the moment you start chewing, it's like, oh yeah, I like this flavor, but then very quickly, like not too long later, it's like, oh, it's lost its flavor.
Yeah, that's what this movie is. It's stride gum.
Right.
Um, but all right, so the beginning of the film starts off Superman and Black Adam encountering each other, and then a fight breaks out. And the fight is actually really well done. Like, it's not like with BVS or a few other DC movies where it's muddy and you can't really see stuff, and it's like, oh, just like uber dark. It's brightly lit. Like, I think they took notes from Godzilla versus Kong and just went, yeah, let's have it be a well lit fight in daytime.
Yeah. And this is a tangent, but have you read Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League? I've been meaning to get to that.
I've read a bit of it. I'm waiting for trade to finish it all, but it's pretty fun. It's nothing mind blowing, but I do think it has a lot of fun elements. Like it's kind of funny. A friend of mine, Matt Denny, and I talked about everything that happened in this comic so far.
Okay.
It's not a bad thing. It's just that we're two dorks who were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this happened?
Right, yeah.
But no, I recommend it.
Yeah, I'll definitely get around to it. But yeah, versus stories can be kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes they're done just for fun, and I feel like that's more flexible in comics, but for a movie where you're going out to see it, it can be kind of hit and miss, you know?
But this opening fight I made the mistake of getting hope for that opening fight. And maybe it's just because of seeing Henry Cavill back as Superman.
Yeah, like I feel like in this instance, he really got to embody this hopeful Superman we'd been wanting to see, you know, in this and in the R Universe's version of Shazam 2. Like, I'm at least glad that Cavill got to play this type of Superman before the end, whereas in that other universe, he didn't really get a chance, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there are some good moments with Cavill in here, which we'll get to later, but like that opening scene of the two fighting, and there's also a great scene where they're destroying Kahndaq, and there's they fight on a bridge, and this bus is about to tip over, and Superman is just like grabbing it and trying to pull it back while he's just getting blasted with lightning from Adam. But I'm like, that's the Superman I want to see, that we didn't get to see in Man of Steel.
Yeah, I even wondered if maybe this was a callback to the bus scene in Man of Steel, which, like, one of my big gripes in that movie was Jonathan Kent telling kid Superman / Clark Kent that, like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have saved them. And it's like, what the hell, Jonathan? But yeah, I thought here it was done better.
So the movie continues, and it cuts to, you know, Billy and the kids like just watching that. Like, it's like breaking news: Superman and Black Adam and the new metahuman Black Adam are tearing apart Kahndaq. And Shazam's like, Black Adam? Hey, that's the guy the wizard warned me about. I should go help. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the dialogue.
Yeah, and it does feel like we get a weird mix of two different movies, because with Black Adam we got like some dialogue about like the political unrest and people not being willing to do as much as they can, whereas with Shazam it's like mainly about family. So how'd you think about the meshing of the tones in this one?
It felt really off base. Like, it's clear that there is like 6 writers on this movie, and boy does it show.
Yeah, like I was thinking back to the Justice League Unlimited episode where, you know, Shazam being Billy being a kid, he's not that in tune with politics, and so Superman gets upset when like he doesn't know how to do things quote unquote properly. So I thought that episode handled things in a mostly well fashion in terms of the tone, but here it feels like they couldn't really nail that.
Going back to the film, the fight goes on, Shazam jumps in, and now it's like, oh, it's just like the Judd Winnick story. Cool. And I was like, Adam is like, so you're the new guy, you know? And Shazam's like, yeah, I'm the new guy. I'm here to. He's like, I'm here to kick your ass, man. And already, I don't know if it's like back. If I don't know if there's was like backs. Like off-camera beef between the two, or they just didn't like each other, or I don't know if it was script or direction, but like there is no. This is supposed to be a big moment in comics. It's Black Adam and Shazam encountering his arch nemesis, and I don't feel it.
Black Adam also throws in that line that The Rock had been saying, which is that the balance of power is about to change, and it just came out feeling very cold and flat within the movie itself.
Yeah, I don't know if like Zachary Levi and Rock do not have. I don't feel it. It's not like a big moment where like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man encountered like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and like you can feel like, oh yeah, these guys are, you can feel like that energy from the comics, or whenever you have Batman and Joker encounter each other in film.
Yeah, or
except for one, but you already know that one.
Right, yeah. And like this also reminds me of how with Batman versus Superman, you had Superman and Lex Luthor, but even just in terms of the iconic hero characters, like you expect Superman and Batman's first live action on-screen interaction to be super epic, and it just wasn't there. And now granted, Shazam and Black Adam aren't as well known, but I still kind of felt that vibe here. They were setting up this collision course, and then when it finally happens, it just kind of doesn't really excite me very much.
Yeah. But I will say the fight was still pretty good. And I actually like how it ended where Black Adam, Superman and Shazam are teaming up, and Black Adam, knowing he's getting his ass kicked, just pulls out the political, you're invading. This is an invasion of conduct from from foreign soil. You guys have to leave, or it'll be open war. And Shazam's like, dude, you punched Superman.
Yeah.
You literally punched, Superman. And he's like, yeah, Superman is an American citizen, and, it's an act of war. So Superman, it shows how much, how well, if there's anything I can take away from this, is how well Cavill's written. It's almost like his swan song, where Superman just goes, no, he's right, we have to leave, even though, you don't have to like it, but my pa used to say, sometimes you get the bear gets you.
Right, and Billy Batson's reactions, because, he's not as in tune with politics and all this grown-up stuff that's going on. He keeps on fighting, verbally fighting back, being like, no, we have to stop him from doing all these terrible things. And so they nail the mentor-mentee relationship between Superman and Shazam, but I also appreciate that there's a bit of resistance that sort of makes sense, Yeah.
So they leave Kahndaq, and we cut to, and I like it because now we finally get that running joke from the last two movies paid off, of Mr. Mind and Sivana, and Mr. Mind comes in and is like, hey, that time, our time is now. We're going to, we're finally going to do stuff. And so I love the joke of Sivana's like, oh, really? We're going to do stuff now? After how many times you visit and say, oh, my plan's working.
Yeah.
And that's when Mr. Mind's like, no, you idiot, it's actually going to work. And that's when the wall comes just busted down, and I was like, oh my god, no way, it's Mr. Adam. For those who are not in the know, Mr. Adam is a giant robot who is a lesser known Black Adam, not Black Adam, Shazam villain. That's when he's like, yeah, I was you wanted to know, Mr. Mind's like, you wanted to know what I was doing. I was getting friends. And then we see the whole prison just getting attacked left and right, and it's the monster society of evil.
We also get the two sisters from before, and yeah, this is a very obscure organization for the mainstream audience anyway, so it was really cool to see that brought in here. And I think it kind of works because I don't know how much screen time he can devote to just fighting Black Adam, so like some people did have the criticism that it feels kind of like a conflict dropped in the middle out of nowhere, but I think because like this universe is on its way out, I was just like, oh, I'll see where this goes, I guess.
Yeah. So, and that's right. And yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It's like, well, at least this was cool.
Right.
But I will say that it is kind of cool that it's revealed to be Belle Rev. Savannah's been in the whole time, and this is kind of where the movie just goes, okay, that happened. That felt where it's revealed the Monster Society of Evil slaughtered the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that was like really unexpected.
Yeah, like Ibak, one of Shazam's villains, he's like ripping off King Shark's head. You see Harley Quinn's body, which is totally not Margaret Robbie, lying like split in half. I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be PG-13. Holy crap! Like you just see like a bloody Amanda Waller, and she's just like, do it, I'm not scared of you, and that's when Mr. Mind goes, you should be, and then just takes over her brain, and like it uses her, like instead of using the cool worm, we get Viola Davis as a puppet for the rest of the film, and I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like the implications of that.
Yeah, that was. I was not like into that choice. Also, it was kind of weird that Batman just so happened to be at Belle Rev when this happened. Like he was turning in like a criminal, and then he was there when Harley died. Like it felt like they were trying to throw a bone to the Snyder fans who wanted the Snyderverse to continue with like the future stuff, but it also like doesn't really fully line up. Like you can tell it's just thrown in there, and like in the like online stuff the writers are like, oh well, there's this weird multiverse stuff happening, so it's fine, and I'm just like, okay, I don't really care anymore, I guess.
Yeah, here's the thing about DC Comics, and I find it funny that it's bled over into movies. If you don't like the continuity now, wait 5 years, it'll change.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Did it bother you of them using like Waller, like Mr. Mind using Waller like a puppet for the rest of the movie?
Yeah, because Amanda Waller, she's not necessarily one of my favorite characters, but I feel like Viola Davis does a great job embodying the character. So when they used her as a puppet in this, as opposed to having her as a puppet master, like it felt very like it felt whack and very problematic, you could even say. So yeah, like I was looking forward to seeing Mr. Mind in this, and then I was like, oh, I'm not really into how he was used here.
Yeah, because like Mr. Mind is one of, like, I think some people, like this dude has destroyed multiverses in the comics, and like I don't know if it was like a directorial decision or a producer decision, but I'm like, people could have been scared of this worm, seriously. But I'm guaranteed, like, someone in the WB board was like, no one's going to take a worm as the main villain seriously. And I'm like, Tremors disagrees.
Right. Man, Tremors, that's a throwback.
Yeah. But, yeah, it bothered me. And again, like you said, it's a little problematic.
And it also caused some confusion because, even though the universe is going to change, you still had those people online asking, well, how is Peacemaker Season 2 going to fit in all this? Are they still going to have Waller in that? And how is that show going to still fit? James Gunn says it'll still fit with a new continuity, and I'm not really sure how, but again, it's like comics, whenever there's a reset, they'll toss away what they don't want, and the stuff that they do want will carry over somehow, you know?
And also the ending of this movie does have like I think it has an explanation, which we'll get when we get to the ending. I'll do my best to try to like give my explanation to how, because I think I know where they're trying to go. But anyway, what did you think of like the whole thing of like the Bell Rev breakout and basically Mr. Mind's like, oh no, we got one more guy to recruit, and it's Black Adam. Were you just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna take away all of the like what little character stuff was in the first Black Adam movie, I guess?
It felt really contrived because you have these two different sets of villains. You know, you have the Monster Society, and you also get this other stuff where Black Adam is linking with some people from the Legion of Doom, and it's like, oh, I guess this movie just wants to combine the two, have them all join up together in one big damn sort of finale, which did kind of work for the end of Justice League Unlimited and Teen Titans, kind of, with like the Brotherhood of Evil being a huge thing with so many members. But I think because of the execution, it felt, having all these characters, it felt really cluttered when it showed them, which is a weird thing to say because we've had Avengers Endgame, and seeing all the heroes all together there, it didn't feel cluttered, but I think that's because it felt earned, whereas here it felt really sloppy and haphazard. So yeah.
Yeah, and the best explanation they give for like why we're seeing the Legion of Doom now, and in Kahndaq, is because like Black Adam's looking for allies, and he wants to like he's actually like considering going to war with the U.S. over the Superman Shazam fight, and basically is like, well, like I recruited some. I'm in talks with a special group of individuals, and I do like that they brought in like Grodd, Scarecrow, and Sinestro as the envoys from the Legion of Doom, but like this doesn't feel right. Like I'm like, these are major villains, and you're just using them as like lackeys for Luthor. Oh my god, Grodd. Oh god, I wanted to throw up. Oh, the CGI on Grodd was god awful.
Oh yeah, like in an age where we have Kong and Planet of the Apes, like how do they make Grodd look this bad? Like Grodd even looked good in the Flash TV show, and that show has gotten flack for its CGI, but here it feels like there was not enough effort for Grodd.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because like the actor they got, and it's kind of funny because now he's voicing the villain in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, is playing Grodd here, and I'm like, damn, you're really good as Grodd. Yeah. I can see why you're in Kingdom.
Yeah, and for Scarecrow, I do kind of like that they got David Hyde Pierce to voice him, you know, Niles Crane from Frasier.
Yeah, I actually thought he was kind of like, that was the, if they could actually do another Batman movie, god, he'd have been perfect.
Yeah, I kind of hope that they keep him, because you know, people should be used to DC reusing actors anyway, so I think it'd be fine if they used him again. Like, he's only used sparsely in this, so I would like to see more of him as Scarecrow, at least as a voice, because I know Pierce is older, and and I guess you could argue whether or not you need to see him outside the suit. I do quite like when we're not sure what Scarecrow looks like under the suit, because I think that makes him even creepier and cooler to look at.
Yeah. What did you think of Jeffrey Combs as Sinestro?
Oh, that was like totally out of left field, I saw his face and I was like, I've seen your face before. Wei-Yun from Deep Space Nine, and of course he's done Reanimator and all sorts of other things.
And he was in Justice League. He was the Question.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was at least glad that he was getting work, but I'm not necessarily sure that this would be considered as much of a standout role for him, you know?
Yeah. And it also kind of pissed me off that, like, why does the DCU hate Green Lanterns? Because Sinestro has this offhand comment where he's like, I killed, it's not my first time killing human Green Lanterns, just ask Rayner and Gardner. And I'm like, oh, off.
Yeah, and it feels like they had a chance to make this a more hopeful note, this movie, but in a way it feels like they pretty much made it a summation of some of the DCEU's problems. In Batman vs. Superman, I never liked the insinuation of, a Robin being killed. Like, I'd be fine if it's Jason Todd, but the implication seemed to be that it was Dick Grayson, and I'm like, wait, why? And maybe Dick becomes Joker, depending on what you read about the behind-the-scenes stuff. And also, like
the killing of Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, too. Like, why kill off Jimmy Olsen? Like, that was such a detriment to that movie and to the Superman side of the DCEU. Like, he's supposed to be, do you hate fun? Like, that was basically my reaction when I found out Jimmy was killed after the fact,
Yeah. And the moment Jimmy died in Batman v Superman, I was like, oh, this is not going to be fun.
Yeah, not too long ago, I saw someone say the MCU died with Tony Stark. It's one of those comments where it's like, oh, I stopped watching after Endgame. But my response was the DCEU died with Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. So what did you think of the other actors they got for roles for other Legion members? I know we had Killer Frost, we had Clayface, and I know they showcased I'm surprised they didn't bring in Deathstroke. Was Joe Manganiello busy?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he briefly might have been glimpsed in the version of Aquaman 2 that we got here. It was really quick in like a montage type thing. But yeah, I don't know, like, what was the deal with that? But yeah, for Killer Frost, I like that they got Emma Stone to play her. Granted, I would have liked if she'd gotten more to do in the role, but it was really cool to see her in this role.
Yeah. And it was cool, I will admit, to have Ron Perlman back as Clayface. I thought that was a neat reference to the cartoon, to the Batman cartoon.
Yeah. Did they ever say which Clayface this is? Like, did they give him a name in this?
They said, I think, and I could be wrong, I think they said Carlo, which is the first one.
Yeah, okay, Basil Carlo, yeah. Okay.
And I'm also like, his CGI looked better than Grodd's.
Yeah, I guess they figured, well, if we're gonna use good CGI on one of these characters, let's use it on Clayface, because there aren't many Clayface-looking characters in other media. People have seen CGI apes, so let's allocate that here, which I kind of get, but also, like, I don't know, why couldn't everything have looked good?
There was another member of the Legion that made me go, alright, I wish you got more screen time because you're giving it all, and also this is fun. What did you think of Matthew Lillard as Weather Wizard?
I laughed out loud in the theater when I realized it was him.
I was like, thank you. He doesn't get a lot of screen time because he gets killed later in the movie, and I'm like, oh man, at least he's giving. It's like his. It was almost like watching his character Dennis from 13 Ghosts, where he's just overacting in it, but it's fun.
Yeah, and we also, throughout the movie, we cut back and forth to the Shazamily. We see a couple of them in school, like in their social studies class or whatever, like learning more about the conflict across the globe, and it's kind of weird seeing like events within the DC universe be talked about in schools as like current historical events.
Although, in a weird way, that makes sense, because, like, you would think that, like, if you existed in a comic book universe, that those major events would be documented, like Marvel, not the MCU, but, like, Marvel Comics in general, like, so that had to have been a historical moment when, like, Thanos snapped half of life out off of existence, and then everyone just came back 24 hours later. Or, like, I don't know, like, like Blackest Night in DC Comics, like, that had to have been, like, a historical mode of, like, people coming back as, like, lantern zombies. So I was like, I'll give this one a pass, because I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you also had like the family talks with the Shazamily where, Billy is still like confused about all the conflict going on. So like his older sister has to like spell it out for him, and I think it's also to sort of hold the hand of the audience members who maybe aren't following because there's so much going on in the movie.
Yeah. What did you think, by the way, of like when the Legion of Doom and Monster Society of Evil meet? Were you thinking, where's the rest of the Justice League? Because it's only Billy and Clark who are the main focus of this movie. They don't mention Flash. They don't mention, well, they mention like, they have this throwaway line where it's like, everything's going crazy and the league's everywhere and no one can find Batman. I'm like, oh, screw you. Batman, I didn't like this incarnation of Batman, but at least you could have done more.
Yeah, like, I think because of the stuff going on in Aquaman 2, the people behind this movie thought, well, we don't really need to explain much here, but not everyone sees everything, so I feel like just one line explaining what's going on would have been nice.
After so much rambling, I guess like the major plot of this movie, when it finally attempts to focus up, it basically, like, the Monster Society and Evil and Legion of Doom both want the same thing, is to get to the Wazunderlands. Now, for those who don't know what the Wazunderlands are, it's basically in the Jeff Johns run of Shazam, the Wazunderlands are basically Oz and the Wonderland from Alice in Wonderland. Like, the worlds merge together, and it's part of the magical realms, because both sides realize they want the same thing. There's something in there that has the power to rewrite the universe, or the multiverse, even.
Yeah. Like, it feels like the people behind these movies were trying to grab onto multiple reasons for all this multiverse stuff, and yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it all makes sense, but I do quite like the idea of a mix of Oz and Wonderland. I actually recently read one of the 90s Teen Titans comics where they sort of encountered something Oz related. So it's kind of funny to see because of public domain and whatnot being a thing for some of these. And yeah, I did like the design for Wonderland.
Yeah. It was pretty neat in some places, but it was clear the CGI did not get, there was not, so either this movie got rushed or something, but like CGI looked pretty bad. And not to mention, like, when the big fight is going on between the Legion, the monsters, and Shazam and Superman, like, it's just a big muddled mess, and there's shaky cam everywhere, and I'm like, you did so well on the first fight.
No, yeah, in Wonderland, I'll admit, the giant mushrooms looked like they were straight out of the Super Mario Brothers movie. And they also, like, made a little joke about Scarecrow and being like, hey, maybe now you'll find a brain, because, like, how could they not make that joke?
Well, at the very least, like, that joke would have got a groan from somebody, but thankfully it was Matthew Lillard, who like, the line delivery worked.
Yeah.
I guess, like, one of the things, like, during this whole thing is, like, Billy and Clark having this buddy cop kind of thing between the two of them, because they realize, oh, we're the only two that can stop this now, because no one else is coming. I do like the moment where, like, Clark, like, is like, I'm sorry this happened to you, Billy, and Shazam's just like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, I'm hanging out with my idol here. I'm like, this is the coolest day ever. And he's like, no, I'm sorry the wizard did this to you, because now you're you're too young for this, and you've already gone through enough. Like, your family told me all this stuff. Like, you're going through a lot of it, and I wish, like, I could have at least been there from the start. Like, he's like Clark has this moment where it's like, I'm mad at the wizard that he chose a child to be a soldier.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, like, if Batman would have like had a problem with that, you know.
Yeah, there's even like a moment where Shazam's like, "What about Batman? He has Robin," and that's when Clark gives him this look of, "Really, we're going to talk about Robin in the DCU? Have you not been keeping up?"
Right.
Yeah. So I guess like the big reveal of what the of what Mr. Mind and subsequently Luthor want is it's not a something, it's a someone, and it's Superboy Prime. This is where the movie goes off the rails in terms of writing and everything. So, how did you feel about the whole explanation of Superboy Prime being from a previous universe, but it died, and now he's trying to, like, he can lead everyone to the source wall to rewrite the universe?
I think it was very convoluted because you have all this going on, and you also have the time travel from the Flash, which bled into Aquaman 2. And like, I know the source wall from mainly from like Justice League Unlimited, but I feel like this was maybe too heady of a concept for a lot of the casual moviegoers, so I'm not really sure that it works all that well, personally.
Yeah. What did you think of Joseph Quinn cast as Superboy Prime?
Well, I thought to myself, well, this guy gets to be in both DC and Marvel now, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Being in Stranger Things, I guess, did that.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he's good, but I just don't get him as, like, a credible threat. Even, like, he even sounds, and it's supposed to sound dumb, but, like, it just sounds, like, so forced when he says Superboy Prime's classic line of, I'll kill you to death.
Yeah, and that got memed a lot on the internet afterward.
For those who don't understand why he said that in the movie, because there were a lot, basically to represent that, like, he's a petulant child of a human being. He's meant to be an angry DC fanboy, you see.
Right. What'd you think of the outfit, like how it looked on him here?
I don't know why, like, right out the gate they gave him the anti-monitor armor, because it looked like CW level, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the final fight when everyone's at the source wall?
Yeah, I thought I could see that they were trying to do a showcase of like what each of the characters could do in the fight, but they also don't have quite everyone, so it kind of feels hollow, and cuz you're thinking about like the out of universe, like the real life explanation of like, oh, maybe there were scheduling conflicts or maybe it was rushed, and it just took the enjoyment out of this final fight because it really felt like it was a reminder that there wasn't a roadmap that they stuck to, at least in the last several years, and it was honestly disheartening, like seeing this final fight and not really feeling hyped about it, no matter what the music tried to convey.
Yeah. So, and it's supposed to, like, showcase, like, oh, DC Universe is forever. Because, like, there's a moment where, like, Prime is just wailing on the source wall, and every punch, like, breaks the multiverse even more to the source wall. And then it just, like, the fight comes apart because everyone's stopping and realizing that Prime is what he's doing. So, and this is where the movie goes in a different, like, in a weird direction, because of the title makes you go, this was supposed to be Black Adam versus Shazam. And yes, there is a final fight between Black Adam and Shazam. But, like, how did you feel about them both dying?
Yeah, it felt very cheap because, like, if you're gonna kill one of them off, like, just kill off Black Adam. And, like, I feel like this is something that should not happen to Billy Batson, at least not at such a young age. So it kind of felt like just shock factor. Like, I just wasn't into it.
Yeah. And I'm like, so now we've completely lost the meaning of the original film. So now it becomes a Superman movie, and I'm thinking to myself, this really should, like, This movie really should have been called Infinite Crisis at the very least. But at the end of it, the Source Wall's breaking apart, and like the energy is like basically Thanos. It's exactly the same thing as like when Thanos snapped his fingers. Don't lie to me. Don't fight me on this. You know I'm right. And Luthor, before he like gets dusted, because Prime is like trying to destroy this, keeps trying to like break the wall. Superman stops him, and Luthor just uses a kryptonite bullet to kill Prime, which shouldn't work because kryptonite isn't a weakness for Prime. That's the whole thing. But that's just me being a comic book fan. There's a moment where Luthor and Superman are looking at the Source Wall, and like the energy's wailing out of control, and that's when like Superman looks at Luthor and is like, "What can we do?" And he goes, "Nothing we can do. All we can do is just let it happen." And I'm like, so this is how we're rewriting the universe.
Yeah, it really feels like they were over-explaining how the reboot's gonna happen, when I kind of would have liked if they had just done the reset without worrying about setting it up. You know, just let the movies be their own stories and stand on their own, and just let the new stuff happen, and just tell the public, okay, this is a new continuity, so roll with it, type thing. Like, I'm so over having to explain in universe why things become different, you know?
Yeah, I was not a fan. And then it's just like the whole thing breaks apart, the Source Wall breaks open, and a white flash happens, and that's the end of the movie. And people were like booing in my theater.
Yeah. You know how sometimes in some movies, like it'll say this character will return. Well, instead it said the DC universe will return, and there were some people groaning because it just felt god awfully cheesy the way that happened.
That's the movie, everybody.
Yeah.
So what do you think of it, man? Like, by the end of it, what were you feeling? Were you feeling contempt? Were you feeling, forlorn? Were you feeling like it's over, the work is done, and I can rest, watch the sunrise on a grateful cinema universe?
You know, it was frustrating because, like, the beginning of the movie, you could see how the Shazam side of things could have worked really well, and how they were handling Superman better than in some of these other movies. But then it just quickly devolved over the course of the movie, and to the point where I just stopped caring, and I'm like, relief that the movie is over, but also like, wow, I just wasted like 2 hours on this thing.
And that's the other thing. You think with a movie this big, it just, like, with all the stakes and all the characters and whatnot, this movie barely gets to 2 hours.
Yeah, like, only if you include the credits. Like, I think without the credits, it's like an hour and 50 something.
Yeah. So, this was bad. I didn't like this.
Right, so I guess we could go into final thoughts and score out of 10. So, what are your final thoughts and score out of 10, and unit of measurement for that score for Shazam versus Black Adam?
I'm going to say this movie was failed on every level as a comic book movie, as a swan song to the DCU. Henry Cavill as Superman, there are some good moments with him, and some of the lesser actors like Lillard and Combs did their best with what they had. But this movie's a CGI jumbled mess. It's clear there's like 3 different teams worked on this. The script is all over the place, and it doesn't even be the movie it's trying to be. It's not even a Shazam versus Black Adam movie. It is a Shazam 3, Black Adam 2, Superman 2, Legion of Doom, Monster Society of Evil, Justice League 2, Brave and the Bold, Infinite Crisis, mess sequel. And I did not like it. So I am going to give this two weather wands out of 10.
I feel like I've seen worse movies, but this was pretty bad still. So I think I'd give this, because we do get glimpses of the Superman and Shazam dynamic, which I really liked, but I feel like I can go no higher than 4 out of 10 um, mushrooms, because it feels like that's what the people making this were on. Um, so, yeah, again, really frustrating, and also the release slate has felt really weird for these final DCEU movies. Like, you have a Swan Song movie, then you have what's supposed to be a solo movie but has some stuff shoved into it, then a Swan Song, then maybe another solo movie with stuff shoved into it, and it's just like pick a lane, you know? Like it's if anything, it just makes me even more glad that this is all getting rebooted. I just wish that they didn't spend these few movies and one like just setting up the reboot when they could have just focused on their own thing. But yeah, I guess that'll do it. So thanks for joining me again, Mr. Multiverse. Where can people find your stuff?
They can find me on YouTube, and I have 2 short stories written in these 2 books called Duel of the Monsters, anthology series. There is also Volume 3, which I will be writing 2 stories in, and it will be my first time writing in public domain monsters.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I bet that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to write dialogue for a famous character rather than have like. And don't get me wrong, I liked writing like monsters hissing and growling, but you can only do that for so long until you want to be like, I want to have them talk shit to each other.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Yeah. Thanks again, and I'll include my plugs in the edit. And without further delay, have a good day. Alright, so you can email this podcast at delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on walls. You know, like the source wall. You can, and apologies for the audio if it sounds kind of weird, but hey, that's kind of fitting for this frenetic, rushed movie that we talked about. You can follow me at Steven Shinder wherever I am on social media, or Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can go to stevenshinder.com and find my standalones and stepping stones novels on Amazon. And I'm on Goodreads, Letterboxd. These will be in the show notes. And yeah, you can also find me on Yesshift talking about music and Drum Talk TV. We did a virtual concert featuring Holiday on Saturn. So yeah, lots of cool stuff going on there. And without further delay, here's my other self reviewing some TV stuff, and not necessarily in this order, I'm not sure, but the season 3 premiere episodes for Star Wars: A Bad Batch, and the new Netflix Avatar: The Last Airbender show, and Disney Plus's Percy Jackson and the Olympians show. So yeah, without further delay, here he is. Alright, hello, it's me again. So I guess I'll start off with the thing that's been out, and again, non-spoiler thoughts. I'll start with the thing that's been out a little bit longer that I sort of talked a little bit about last time, I think, and now I've finally finished it. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So yeah, you got Greek stuff in here and Greek stuff in DC mythology. So for background, I never read the books, but I knew friends here and there who were super in love with those books. It was comparable to, like, to them, like their enthusiasm for it, it's comparable to people's enthusiasm for Harry Potter and such. But yeah, and I never watched the movies until recently, and both of them were terrible. But the show is definitely better than the movies, and I know that's not saying much, but there was some really enjoyable stuff. The characters feel like they're on a journey that you're like rooting for them, but for some of the show, I feel like the lighting was like way too dark. Like I had the brightness setting on my TV set up all the way, and still it was really hard to see stuff in certain scenes. And I even saw someone online say Percy Jackson the lighting thief because it's like way too dark. But yeah, that kind of hindered some of my enjoyment. And I also noticed that I wasn't feeling as invested as I kept going further. And I'm sure people who are super into the books probably love the show, but since I'm not as invested in this world, the show was like it was fine. It was aight. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Lightning bolts or whatever. So yeah, I'm kind of hesitant to say whether it's worth checking out because I myself, I'm not necessarily feeling like I'll be rushing to watch season 2 as it's airing whenever that comes out, because it did get confirmed for a second season. Um, and yeah, I'm also not as well versed in Greek mythology. Like, I know some friends in high school and in college, it's like Greek mythology is their everything. Like, they know all the gods and goddesses, what they're all about. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of just, the show is kind of just there to me. So yeah, Percy Jackson and the Olympians on Disney Plus, 7 out of 10 for me, in terms of enjoyment. I guess next to talk about, should I talk about Atla or Bad Batch? I guess I'll talk about Atla. So Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you've seen the animated series, I feel like there's not really anything to spoil. And I'm not going to get too in depth about the plot, but yeah, it adapts season 1, book 1, Water. It's told in 8 episodes. Each one is maybe 45 minutes to around an hour long. And the colors, in animation, the vibrant colors are part of the draw. Here, they do a decent job making the outfits colorful enough, but the settings, of course, have to look somewhat realistic. It's definitely better than the 2010 Last Airbender film, which was a really low bar. And again, that was like such a weird time for movie adaptations with like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Percy Jackson movies and stuff. And yeah, that 2010 movie was really awful, but here, like, they do a better job. They do change. They do change Boomy, but I feel like it makes sense in context, and it feels a bit more real and can resonate. Like, if you really take into account like what he went through, but you still have basically the same outcome with him. The cabbage guy, I was really surprised that he was played by Danny Pudi from Community. He played Abed, and it made a couple Community episodes even funnier because there's that election episode where Abed says that he regrets watching the Last Airbender movie. And there's also the Grifting 101 episode with all the briefcases, and he actually is involved in something that involves switching out cases. Like, the character has a bit more to do in this show, which I thought was funny. But yeah, as the show kept progressing, like, I definitely enjoyed stuff. It wasn't as lighthearted. Not quite as lighthearted as the show. Sokka is funny in kind of a different way. He's funny in he'll talk in circles and dig himself into a hole type of funny. But I still feel like certain characters could have conveyed a little bit more personality. Aang isn't as childish, but he does have optimism that he's trying to convey. And yeah, I feel like as I got closer to the end, my attention started to wander, and I kind of thought to myself, I'd probably be paying more attention if it was animated. And there are like little things here and there that people who are super into the Avatar The Last Airbender lore are like gonna nitpick the changes of. Like, apparently, like, I never would have noticed this, but in the original show, whenever they bend, they do these movements that are supposed to be akin to movements from martial arts, but here, like, they move their hands and whatnot differently to the point where people online have been saying it just looks like generic magic when they do it like that, and it's honestly not something I noticed. People are also upset that the glider wasn't in play during one of the early instances of Aang, I guess, flying, but I think the glider comes in later from what I remember. And I don't know, it's just something that I didn't think too much on. Kind of reminded me of how with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, I didn't really think twice about like web shooters being absent or anything. So I think if you're a super fan, like, every damn detail of Avatar The Last Airbender, you might not enjoy this remake very much. But I've seen people here and there who enjoy the original actually say that the show, like, they've been enjoying it somewhat and that's decent, and there have been some who have like really hated it. I think it's another 7 out of 10 show, 7 out of 10 Momos. Momo's actually barely in this because I guess the CGI, I don't know. They have to cut corners in places. So, yeah, and I'm honestly surprised that I went ahead and watched the whole season within a couple days, because leading up to it, I wasn't feeling as excited, but then I got through it, kind of got it over with, and when season 2 comes out, yeah, I don't know, like, how I'll be feeling then, like, if I'll feel like, oh, it's something I need to watch right away, or once a week, or what, but I have started a little rewatch of the original show, so I guess we'll see how that goes. And okay, so I guess that's pretty much all my thoughts on the new Atla show. So Star Wars The Bad Batch, the first 3 episodes of season 3. I think it's another 7 out of 10. I know we're just swimming in sevens. It just all feels kind of average to me in terms of my enjoyment. So 7 out of 10 Mount Tantuses. Like, there have been, I don't know, like, it's, the show's kind of gritty, but I feel like a lot of the praise right now is from how it's connecting to the sequel trilogy, specifically the Rise of Skywalker, setting up some of the Palpatine cloning machinations. And I feel like if someone were to look at what I see online, my feed of people talking about the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian for that matter, like, if someone were not caught up on Star Wars, they'd only seen the movies and hadn't dipped into these shows, like, if they saw that feed, they would think that the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian are exclusively about Palpatine's planning, and instead of being about the characters that these shows are following. And I'm not sure how I feel about all that. Like, I'm not sure what it really says if all that people are talking about is the Palpatine connections rather than what characters like Crosshair and Omega are and whatnot are going through. So yeah, I'm hoping I enjoy this season more than I currently am. I kind of don't expect the series finale to be climactic like for Rebels and the Clone Wars. I kind of expect it to be more low key. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the show isn't making me think as much as the fan reaction to the show is. Like the fan reaction, like people are like there are people who despise any connections to the sequel trilogy, but there are people praising the connections in these TV shows to how they're setting up stuff in the Rise of Skywalker. And I feel like it's sort of tainting people's general perception of the sequel trilogy, making it feel like it's mainly about Palpatine's return. And the Rise of Skywalker, to me, like in hindsight, it kind of feels like Rise of Skywalker with the Palpatine of it all was more concerned with continuing teased threads from Revenge of the Sith than on continuing stuff organically from Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So yeah, I feel like all these TV things connecting to Rise of Skywalker is coloring people's perception of the sequel trilogy, so that it feels like, oh, it's mainly about Palpatine's return. So I'm hoping that whenever the Rey movie, the New Jedi Order movie, whatever it's gonna be called, comes out, I'm hoping that does a good job of reminding people that the sequel trilogy, it should be about the characters and like the heroes and the journey that they take, the good parts of the journey anyway. It's about the heroes. I hope that's something that doesn't get lost as as more fleshing out for the sequels happens over time. So yeah, those are my basically my thoughts on all that. Yeah, I guess it's more thoughts on the state of Star Wars and on the Bad Batch itself. So yeah, I'm hoping there's more to talk about with that show. I'll keep watching week to week. But yeah, that's pretty much all. And without further delay, have a good day.